Good morning and welcome to the 2021 Israel EdTech 50. My name's Patrick Brothers. I'm the co-CEO of HolonIQ, and I have with me Yaki Dayan, founder and CEO of EdTech Israel. Thanks for joining us, Yaki. Got you on mute, mate.
Yes. Good morning, everybody.
Wonderful. All right, we have a fast and furious 45 minutes ahead of us, action-packed. Firstly, let me share a brief outline of the session. Yaki is having a couple of technical challenges, but firstly, he's going to share some insights about EdTech Israel and what Yaki is seeing across the ecosystem. We'll share a little bit about the methodology of the EdTech Israel 50. We'll also share the map of those 50 startups that have been selected as part of the 2021 Israel EdTech 50, and then we'll move into the main part of the session. We're going to hear from, and I'll briefly introduce 5 leaders from 5 companies who are part of the Israel EdTech 50, and they're going to share a brief overview, about 5 minutes, of the work that they're doing and the impact that they're having around the world from their vantage point. For those of you who are new to HolonIQ, no, we're not named after the city of Holon, and I would obviously only mention that in a session on Israel. We're named after a concept in philosophy. Holon is a Greek word that talks about networks and ecosystems, where each part of that is a whole by itself, but part of the broader ecosystem as well. We're an impact intelligence platform. We work in education, healthcare, and climate, based out of New York with teams in Sydney, Oxford, and around the world. And we're very lucky to have some incredible customers from philanthropic organizations, sovereign wealth funds, investors, universities, and some leaders around the world in education and in other industries as well. I'm just going to try and bring Yaki back on stage. Bear with us while we do that, and we'll hear a little bit more about EdTech in Israel. Yaki, perfect timing.
Hi, do you hear me now?
Perfect. Over to you, mate. Can you share a little bit about EdTech Israel and the work that you've been doing? I'm sorry you've had those challenges.
Wonderful. So first of all, I want very much to thank HolonIQ, Patrick, Maria, and all the team for your commitment to this industry and for the collaboration we already have for 3 years in a row. When I started EdTech Israel in 2014, I didn't know that there is something which is called social impact startup. But apparently, this is what EdTech Israel is, a social impact startup operating in Israel, already for 7 years in a row, committed to I would say, the business side of EdTech and the Israeli EdTech ecosystem. I emphasize that because unlike maybe some of my partners in Europe, we do not deal in policy, and we do not need an acceleration. There are plenty of accelerators around Israel. So the focus has always been to move to create assets in Israel that will bring the Israeli ecosystem to awareness around the world. I think that over the past 7 years, one of the great assets that we built over here is a community. We have the only database of the entire ecosystem at EdTech Israel across all sectors of the learning spectrum: education, talent, and human capital. Fair to say that in Israel, the term EdTech is many times associated only with K-12, but the global EdTech scene includes everything about lifelong learning from cradle to grave, workforce innovation, what we call higher ed, talent tech, and you'll see this also in the statistics of the companies that have been selected to the Israel EdTech 50. In addition to the activities that we have done over here, we, over the years, EdTech Israel organized over 20 delegations to the best EdTech events around the world. Business delegations, we started in Brazil in May 2015, US, China, India, Asia, Europe. Most probably will not meet again in China in the foreseeable future, but definitely on our next rollout is the next delegation to the SGGSV in April 2022. And hopefully, and this goes to my next slide, we'll be able to do a summit again in Israel. Our last summit was in June 2019. And guess what? It was not possible to do it in June 2020. It was not possible to do it in June 2021. But I think that once things will settle with the pandemic, we'll be able to go back and create this summit in Israel. That last summit attracted over 120 international participants, more than 50 international speakers, and I believe it's one of the leading events in that sector in the world. A little bit about the Israeli ecosystem. I think that this opportunity to map again the ecosystem with Holon IQ was an opportunity to reflect and actually check what happened in the last 2 years in the Israeli ecosystem. And unfortunately, when I went over the database, I had to delete as many as 98 companies or startups that existed in 2019, but do not exist today. Speaking with my colleagues around the world, I understand that this is not so unusual. Those startups or those companies that already showed some revenue stream, some traction, and were very much fit into the post-COVID world, made it very good and very successful, and were able to raise more monies and to grow in their numbers. But those that were pre-seed or seed and they did not have yet enough traction, unfortunately, many of them this stopped to exist, and I think that this is maybe one of the challenges that we have now post-COVID, to rebuild the pipeline, to help the new entrepreneurs to go back into action, to create the new companies that we'll see flourishing in 2 or 3 years from now. I definitely think that this is one of the challenges that you have. Another challenge is emerging from the fact that the DNA of Israeli companies has always been to go to international markets. An international market was severely hit by COVID over the last 18 months. It's not only about the difficulty to go to conferences, etc. It was also the huge difficulty of air travel, moving and provide services in remote locations. And I think that maybe one of the things that we'll see from many of the companies that we'll announce today is that companies that are working D2C, direct to consumer, continue to flourish. Other try to focus very much on the US market. As we all know, the Chinese market has disappeared on us in the last 2 years for so many reasons. And the India market is emerging, but right now, all the objective difficulties of air travel and doing business with them is really a factor. So I think that we'll see in the list of 50 many companies that are either working D2C and see a lot of success, or operating in very successfully in the US market. So I think that this launch of this watch list of EdTech 50 by Holon IQ, I think is another milestone for the Israeli ecosystem. with all due respect to the Startup Nation Finder and other databases that exist in Israel, still organizations all around the world, they look for data, and the Alon IQ is the main source of data for so many of them. So having the list of EdTech 50 on Alon IQ is a very important milestone in our progress. And I look very forward to monitoring this EdTech 50 in the next 6 months or a year and see how they progress. Back to you, Patrick.
Thank you so much, Yaki. Thank you for the work that you do in the ecosystem. I think Israel has, EdTech Israel has a lot to thank you for in terms of promoting the ecosystem and connecting the ecosystem. And I can't wait to be running along the beach in Tel Aviv and having some shakshuka for breakfast on my way to on the way to the next EdTech Israel conference. Thank you so much. As we move on, I just want to point out we unfortunately don't have time for questions. We'll be moving really quickly, but you'll see a little emoji icon down the bottom. So please use that to share feedback on the way through. Thank you so much, Yaki, for that brief overview as well. All right, moving right along, let's talk about eligibility and criteria for the Israel EdTech 50. In brief, we focus on young and fast-growing organizations. So for the most part, not always, but for the most part, companies are less than 10 years old. Of course, from a geography perspective, they are going to be headquartered or founded in Israel. As you all know, there are Israelis all over the world doing exciting things and innovating. When they move their teams out of Israel permanently, let's say to the US market, we would move them. But all of these teams here are founded or headquartered or started or have significant connectivity to Israel. From a status perspective, they're pre-exit, they're startups, they haven't been acquired or listed. If they have, they're representing their parent who's part of this group as well. And from a scope perspective, we're focused on technology, not just software. And as Yaki mentioned, that fuzzy border between job tech, HR tech, upskilling and learning. Standard exclusions are listed companies, which we don't include, or mature incumbents who are all grown up now on their journey. From a criteria perspective, we look really broadly at 5 key criteria. We look at the market, the quality and attractiveness of the relative market. That's generally the category, not just the geography. The products themselves, quality and their uniqueness and demonstrated impact. The team, that it has the expertise it needs and it is diverse. That it has the capital, and that's not just about raising lots of money. That's about the ability to secure or generate the resources required to achieve their mission. And finally, momentum, that there are positive changes in their size, velocity, and the impact that the company is having over time as well. So without further ado, let me share the 2021 Israel EdTech 50. I'm going to leave this screen there for the next minute for you to see. Wonderful to see some emojis coming out there. We're really excited, obviously, about this cohort, as Yaki said, and shining a light on the incredible work. But as you're soaking this map up, top left is management systems, language learning, of course, digital content. We see some very innovative content coming out of Israel. STEAM is a real focus, assessment and test prep, specifically on a more advanced technology, sophisticated end. Online learning of all shapes and sizes, advanced tech. It's no surprise Israel is overweight on advanced technology compared to other regions, with a very heavy focus on workforce and skills as well. So congratulations to the teams that are represented here as part of the 2021 Israel EdTech 50. The only other remark I'll make before we look at some stats is just how difficult this task is. Yaki mentioned about the teams who perhaps didn't make it through COVID. The upside of that is there are actually many more teams that make picking the top 50 really, really difficult. Of course, everyone's going through some challenging times. There's some teams on here that are on real highs as well. But Startup Nation, EdTech is no exception, that there are some world-leading companies as part of this cohort as well. Yaki, any comments before we jump in and look at some stats and then head over to the teams? Struggling with that. Sorry, mate. let me move on and see if we can get it off while we're going. From a sector perspective, you can see just over 1/3 focused on K-12 and a little bit more, nearly 40% focused on workforce. That 6% in pre-K is actually overweight compared to other regions of the world. Israel seems to have more teams focused on early childhood. Higher education, I think that's a little bit overweight as well, but great diversity there across all of those spectrums. From an age perspective, this is really interesting, especially reflecting on Yaki's previous comments. So a quarter of the EdTech 50 were founded in under the last 3 years. That's either immediately prior to COVID or through COVID as well. 3 to 6 years, just over a third. And you can see here there are some more mature startups than usual than we would see in EdTech Israel. And some of that is from a slower start now really starting to pick up momentum as well. And then finally, before we speak with the teams, from a subsector or category perspective, you can see a deeper cut here. These were the categories that were on the market map, but perhaps a little bit easier to see that distribution here. Workforce and skills, just over a quarter. Strong representation in management skills. That's not always as highly represented as it is here. STEAM and advanced tech, digital content, really strong. And then language learning, assessment and test prep, and online learning as part of that as well. Let me give you a moment, Yaki, if you're able to get that mic going before I hand over to and introduce our first team. We'll circle back at the end, Yaki. Sorry about that. All right. Now we're on to my favorite part of this session, and that's hearing from the teams themselves that are part of the EdTech 50. I'd like to introduce Rebecca Bishop, VP of Pedagogy at Amplio, to share a little bit more about the work that Amplio is doing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Patrick and Yaki, for the opportunity to speak today and be a part of this cohort. My name is Rebecca Bishop, and I've worked in the field of special education for over 20 years. Early in my career, I worked with deaf and hard of hearing students who were receiving cochlear implants. And at that time, in the early 2000s, students were just starting to enter the mainstream with cochlear implants, and they were doing so at age level with their peers because of the technology that enabled them to develop spoken language skills at the level of their hearing peers by the time they were entering kindergarten, which completely transformed their long-term academic outcomes. I'm so proud today that Amplio is doing that same kind of work, harnessing today's advanced technologies to enable all special needs students the same kind of opportunities. I want to take a minute to orient all of you to the world of special education. 20% of all students in K-12 have special needs. These categories include learning disabilities, speech and language impairments, attention deficit disorders, emotional disturbance, and autism spectrum, among others. Without effective treatment, these students often face social, academic, employment, and health challenges. In fact, people with learning disabilities have a life expectancy that is 16 years shorter than average. It really doesn't need to be this way. And so we are working to change that. Let's see, I'm having trouble advancing the slides at this. Okay, there we go. One more. There we go. Okay. This slide shows the distribution of students by skill. Currently in EdTech, this one, it's not advanced. There we go. Okay. Currently in EdTech, we're focused on gen ed curriculums that serve the center mass. They're curriculums that are one size fits all. And this is where most of EdTech investments are currently focused. What we also know is that this doesn't work for our students who are out on the edge. Thank you. And our students, which represent about 20% of the market, really need a different paradigm. These needs are not being met with today's gen ed technologies. They're not being met with today's investment focus. Really what is required is that special education services require one-on-one support, which clearly fails to scale, and it yields poor fidelity and progress for these students. They can take years to reach their goals. And we really know that it needs to change at this point. Let's go ahead and there we go. Okay. So today's EdTech investments really have ensured that gen ed teachers benefit from a really rich technology support system. We have the opportunity now to apply that same type of support system to special education. Curriculum resources, measurement tools, assessments, all of those can be applied to special needs students using today's technology. Amplio is growing to be a digital hub for special education. It includes everything that educators and students need, and it can act as a force multiplier to build capacity for the special educator. That allows the special educator to focus on really what she signed up for, which is direct, data-driven, evidence-based education to children in need. We know that special education students, especially now following COVID, need 4 to 5 times more intensity than the average gen ed student. We also know that districts are facing massive staffing shortages. They have a 25 to 30% churn year over year. So districts have a workload problem and a student progress problem, and Amplio's smart technology can help solve that. The platform addresses a variety of special needs using advanced technologies like artificial intelligence, natural language processing, and machine learning to give students the intensive interventions that they need to make faster progress. It's also designed to increase teaching capacity and streamline administrative tasks to save teachers time. And district administrators can improve compliance and oversight. So we had a video here of one of our favorite customers, Mary Sanchez. Unfortunately, we're having some tech issues and the video's not playing right now. But I want to tell you a little bit about Mary because she's just fantastic. She's an administrator in one of our Texas districts. They're using our digital dyslexia curriculums to serve their students. And she's absolutely been thrilled with the progress that her educators have made with their students. She has a wonderful quote that she says, "The main thing is that the kids are having fun and they're learning." The time savings are huge for her teachers. We have a Spanish language curriculum that Mary's team is using that allows teachers to address their students' reading deficits in their primary language, setting them up for success for the remainder of their school careers. We're also partnering with Mary and other school teams to improve our product as we go, and they're helping us build a product that's maximizing student progress. Amplio is being used by hundreds of districts in the US, large, medium, and small. We've secured large state-level deals in Texas, Hawaii, and Florida, enabling us to grow by a factor of 15 over the last year. We've won global awards and recognition and have partnered with universities such as UNT, University of Texas in Austin, Michigan State, to train their graduate students on our methodologies and tools. So my background is in special ed and my passion and focus is on student progress, but I understand in this forum that these numbers are what may be the most interesting here. The special education market is a huge market of $100 billion in expenditures. There are 7.1 million students served in the US under IDEA in special education. The average per pupil spending each year is over $14,000. We are rapidly expanding our footprint to serve all areas of need and accelerate progress tenfold for these students, all while applying a force multiplier to address teaching capacity and staffing issues. We want to reach every student in need. We are currently seeking acquisition targets to broaden and deepen our offering. Thank you.
Wow, so impressive, Rebecca. And I mean, impressive, obviously, the growth and the work that you've done, but it's obviously, such special and important area as well to focus on. I'm so relieved that there's a team as awesome as Amplio, with leaders like yourself, focusing on, as you put it so beautifully in those charts, that part of the curve that isn't necessarily as focused on as we all hope it is. So thank you so much for being with us today, Rebecca. Congrats to you and the team on all of your success and the impact that you're having.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. All right, introducing our next speaker, Rotem, Chief Revenue Officer at Cybint. Rotem, love to learn more about what you and your team are doing.
Hey everyone, good morning. My name is Rotem and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Cybint. Been with the company for 2 years, and recently, as you probably heard the news, Cybint was merged with HackerU to form ThriveDX, or in short TDX, where Cybint is serving as the SaaS division. And I'll explain a bit more on what we're trying to achieve in the next 5 minutes. So Cybint and HackerU are about adult education, starting with cyber, coming from very extensive Israeli background of cybersecurity training, and also expanding to IT. And we see that this job shift to digital transformation is a trend that we see over decades. And if we dive a bit deeper into how it actually looks from the functional perspective, we see that 6 million of those new positions that are about to be filled are in cybersecurity, and then the rest are in other adjacent IT roles. And this is what we're after in terms of solving the talent shortage in cybersecurity and adjacent fields. So we have basically 2 verticals that we operate in, and there are a lot of synergies between them, and I'll cover those in a minute. So first, we work on the education side, on the reskilling side mostly, where we partner with higher education and other training institutions all around the world to solve that talent shortage. But in cybersecurity, I think more than probably any other field, just having this one-off training is not enough, because you need to keep up to date all the time. And also from an enterprise perspective, they really suffer from the talent gap, the fact that they have a labor force that is unskilled in cybersecurity, and that's exposing them to attacks and increased cybersecurity risk. So the way we look at it is very holistic, that we assume that the cybersecurity learner is a lifelong learner, and we deliver them the education that they need, no matter where they are in their career or education journey. So we started with boot camps. Boot camps are our non-degree offerings, taking people from zero to hero, or if they're coming from enterprise with short blended programs to fit very specific needs. So if it's the boot camp, it's for someone that wants to enter the cybersecurity job force. And we have about 90% placement rates. Some of my favorite anecdotal evidence that this actually works is we had a student with one of our partners in Europe that was managing tours for artists in Germany. That was his background, did the boot camp, 3 months, and now he's running cybersecurity at the nuclear power plant. All right, so if they trust him, I know I can trust it. And then we saw a lot of demand from our university partners asking to bring this into their degree programs, right? As I said, the bootcamp was a non-degree program, but a lot of times we were dealing with the faculty that was also responsible for the degree program if they have cybersecurity courses in their computer science department. And then we created a solution called the Arcade, which allows them to tap into the hands-on practice environment that we built for the bootcamp, but now they can incorporate that into their 4-credit courses. And that's been doing very well. We started launching this this semester. And if you remember, 2 slides ago, we said that there are 6 million open positions in cybersecurity until 2025. So there's no way we can do this alone. And our strategy has always been to partner with education providers all around the world that have that local access to students and the ability to tap into the local employer environment, but can't really build the program themselves. And that allows us to grow very fast. We now have, I think, almost 50 partners all around the world. Going to the enterprise side is that once people do the program, or if they haven't, they still need training in cybersecurity on the job. So that needs to be role-based, because you can't give the same training to a frontline worker and the programmer in the R&D team. So the idea was to create solutions that address every one of those specific roles and give them what they need in their natural environment to make it as much effective as possible, while giving the enterprise a holistic view of their people risk in cybersecurity. I'll wrap up with this. This is our list of partners. It's actually non-exhaustive. We have more. I just didn't have enough room. But happy if anyone reaches out to learn more. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maya Rothenberg. I'm the VP Marketing of Stoke Talent, and I'm excited to be part of Hulong Q at the Tech 50. But before I'll tell you a bit about Stoke, let me start with how we see the modern workforce. Today, 1 in 3 Americans work on a freelance basis. By 2025, 60% of the workforce will not be employees. Why? Because the world is changing. Technology is progressing quickly, much quicker than education systems like universities. So workers need to learn new skills all the time. And they can do that since technology has made learning accessible to almost everyone. In addition, new generations are coming into the workforce. The millennials, they represent the largest segments of today's working population. And by 2025, Gen Z workers will make up almost 30% of the workforce. 65% of Gen Z want to be their own boss. Now, just throwing remote work into the mix, which has significantly reduced the difference between employees and freelancers. And you'll see how all of these trends combined are basically the engine behind the booming freelance economy. So, what's the problem? The problem is that while the world is changing, companies are finding it hard to keep up. It's hard for companies of all sizes today to work with non-payroll workers like freelancers, independent contractors, gig workers, consultants, you name it. And it's hard in many different aspects. It's hard to find top talents. You can't really find them in freelance marketplaces. Then hiring managers need to make endless alignment. They need to talk to legal to get them to sign the correct legal documents. They need to collect tax documentation and pass them to accounting. They need to align on payment methods and payment cycles with finance. They need to get IT to give them access to systems. Just endless time-consuming admin tasks. Not to mention that finance team need to process multiple invoices every single month with different payment methods and currencies and payment cycles. And when it comes to compliance, freelancers are usually the biggest blind spot in a workforce compliance. Our goal, Stoke's goal, is to make it easy for companies to work with freelancers. We offer a SaaS platform that gets rid of all of the headaches that comes when working with freelancers. It's basically a talent directory of all non-payroll workers in your company, regardless how you source them. It provides full visibility to the organization in terms of which talent do we work with, who didn't sign the required legal docs, who has classification issues, which talent has the skills that I'm currently after. Um, Finance and legal teams can set up automated onboarding workflows that all talents must adhere to, including background checks and insurance verification. We provide real-time tracking of budget, planned versus actual, and milestone completion. And we pay freelancers in a matter of days, in any currency, in any country, in any payment method. So companies can just pay one invoice per month in their preferred payment terms, therefore saving your finance dozens of hours every month and giving control to the hiring manager when they're working with freelancers. Not to mention that we also handle all of the tax, legal, and workforce classification compliance, everything that you no longer need to take any liability on. The bottom line is that we can help companies and agencies increase their productivity by enabling them to tap into the world's most flexible workforce, which is the booming gig economy, without all of the hassles and the headaches. Because the amount of talent that is out there as freelancers is enormous. And I'll just give you a few quick facts about Stoke, so you can understand who we're helping and who's currently trying to better utilize the freelance economy. So about 40% of our customers are agency, 60% are tech companies, while 25% of our customers are growing tech unicorns like Trip Actions and SimilarWeb and Scale AI and Verbit and Hi Bob and many other companies that have raised a lot of money. They need to grow fast and they need top talents in order to do so. We're backed by Better Ventures. We've partnered with the top compliance vendors so we can give a true end-to-end solution for everything that revolves around freelancers. And we've been growing quite rapidly in the 18 months that we've been out in the market. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Maya. That's amazing. 18 months out in the market. I mean, kind of a perfect 18 months in some respect for those looking for remote, but yeah, super impressive. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today and congrats on being part of the Israel EdTech 50. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, introducing Yariv, founder and CEO of eTeacher Group. Yariv, we'd love to learn more about the work that you and your team are doing.
Okay, thank you for having me. So this is our story. Basically, we see three ways of teaching, traditionally and online, and forgive me for oversimplifying. So there was always been tutoring one-on-one, independent learning, classroom learning in the traditional world. And transforming to the internet, we saw tutoring penetrating very fast to the online space, then independent learning. But we didn't see so much how group sessions are getting into the internet. And the reason is that this is very, very, very complex and complicated. So basically what we've done, we solved most of the complication and we've been able to scale small group synchronous learning internationally. So who we are, basically eTeacher is today a global online school operator specializing in small group synchronous learning. We have become a market leader across multiple segments. We today run 5 different virtual schools, delivering 50,000 courses to about 40,000 students across 200 countries, and we teach in 9 different languages. And on the right side, you see our revenues in millions. So we've become a global player. Most of our revenues, more than 85%, are export. The local market is not big, and we need to be that was always a challenge, how to sell from Israel pure B2C courses to the world. Basically, these are schools. We're specializing in language teaching and STEAM education. Techie is a STEAM education business with over 15,000 students learning with us, STEAM education and digital art. The rest of our brands are across languages, Hebrew, biblical languages, English for adults and kids. This is a nice slide that shows how a B2C business located in Israel through the internet using advanced digital skills can really expand globally. So you can see that our customers are really, really distributed. South America, America, Europe, Middle East, and some in Israel. Each of our brands has a different messaging, but the learning, the course model is consistent, outstanding content, synchronous instruction, small group, and highly qualified teachers. So this is a simple model, simple to understand, very, very, very hard to execute and to scale. And in order to do that, we have developed over the year a lot of technology, consists of these three components: integrated CRM, robust LMS, TMS. This is the teacher management system with teachers, sophisticated business intelligence, and our own ERP that manage all of this complex activity. We grow today by acquiring small education businesses that want to go online to the international market. And this is eTeacher Group in 5 minutes. Thanks.
Super impressive, Yariv. That growth you've had in the last couple of years, what's been, the biggest challenge managing that explosive growth?
I think that the bigger challenge is really the recruitment. This growth is really coming with huge growth within the organization. So there is a big management challenges. It all has been done from remote work from home. We found, by the way, that was an advantage. We feel that the remote work really helped and assist this process of growth, I think. But to answer the question, I think it was really the hiring and the restructuring of the organization to support them.
Wow. Well, thank you. Obviously very successful and on to new heights now as well. Thanks so much, Yariv, for joining us today and so we learn more about eTeacher Group.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, our final speaker is Ran Shavit, SVP of Education at Jolt. Ran, we'd love to learn a little bit more about the work that you and your team do.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ran. I'm the Senior VP of Education at Jolt. And first of all, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present you today. And I really enjoyed hearing what other startups are up to. So we're Jolt, and we've built a technology to train generation for jobs in tech in live remote cohorts. Currently, we offer programs for tech sales, customer success, marketing, business analysts, talent acquisition, and more to come. Each year, we train about 1,500 students in Israel and the UK. But let's talk about a second about why we're doing it. So the tech revolution is practically here. While companies raise money, their ability to scale depends on one resource, which is talents. Tech companies compete for those talents and will not accept employees without experience. But the hard truth is that there aren't enough talents with proven experience. On the other side, we have wonderful candidates who want to start their careers in tech or to switch from other industries to tech, but they don't have the specific needed experience. So this is a really paradox. We call it the experience paradox. So how can people without experience get a job to be able to gain experience to do the job? So this is what we try to break at Jolt. So we're breaking this paradox by enabling the global tech revolution. On one side, from the candidate side, we assess the tech job that's right for them. So we help them understand, based on their skills and personality, what is the role that fit to them. The students can take part in practical and hands-on live workshops with industry experts working for tech companies. It's not like an instructors that only instruct other people. They are doing the day-to-day job, and they're teaching what's best for them, what works for them. And we work with the student to build their confidence. Confidence is a really powerful for those candidates, and we prepare them to all of the recruiting stages. From the other side, from the tech companies, from the beginning, we start to build a new syllabus, a new course. We understand the market needs, and the hiring manager perspective, but also the talent acquisition perspective, because they are the first one to screen new candidates. So students already exercise assignments they will probably in the potential employer during the course, during the job search. Second, we teach our students not only the necessary skills and the knowledge for the role, but also skills and habits necessary to be more effective at the tech companies. So it cuts down the onboarding time for companies. And third, we help companies to match their current recruitment needs with our graduates. That's how our grads can easily get job in tech after the course. So our mission is, as I present, is to enable the tech global revolution for both sides, candidates and tech companies, but also help governments to build the right infrastructure to enable this growth. So we are official partner also with the UK government and also with the Israeli government, helping young people to start their career in tech. So until now it was quite simple, the idea, but now how we put it on scale, because the biggest problem for bootcamps companies, it's really expensive to operate. Also, it means like low margins, it's hard to scale in terms of operation and instructors flexibility. So each of our courses is composed of small pieces, lessons called like a Lego bricks that can be reused in other courses. And the content is owned by Jolt, and each lesson has a minute-by-minute script and polished deck. So instructor doesn't need to work hard to start delivering Jolt. They need to be expert in the field. So to bring an example, but the flow of the session is already there. And we have built an operational machine to hunt and train relevant industry experts to become certified Jolt instructors. So for every Lego brick, for every lesson, and each content unit of the course, we have a few certified instructors ready to deliver it. We develop a scheduling algorithm that creates a bidding war to allow our busy instructors to block time according to their availability and our needs. So at the end of each lesson, we collect feedback from the students and share it with the instructor. This is the fuel for the instructors to continue to deliver sessions, and our payment system pay automatically to these instructors. And that's like only sample of our technology to allow the scale of bootcamps. So as you see, we've automated everything but the instructors, allowing delivery in the highest form of training. Live, it's, I think, like the startup here before that present like e-learning, and e-learning is wonderful, but e-learning can help only for not for all of the population. So we know that this is what people need in order to really gain the knowledge and the skills. Last words, Jolt built by people who really get live bootcamps. We've all built like tech bootcamps for the successful Israeli military service, and we are now using our experience to allow more people to break into tech and fuel the tech revolution. That's it. I hope it contributed to you, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks so much, Ron. Super impressive. I think just looking at the team here, if I was going to do a boot camp, I'd want a team like that powering it. Congrats to all the work that you and Jolt have achieved so far, and no doubt on to new heights as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. All right, Yaki, we're out of time, but winding up, what are your reflections having heard from those teams and looking at this year's 50?
You know, I must admit, I feel very proud right now, seeing all those companies from such diverse solutions. For them, each one is focusing on its own way, but having the opportunity to see them from like a macro perspective and look at what is connecting the dots between all of them, I think that's amazing. I really believe that we are heading to a very great future, because I think that once COVID, one of the things that we learned about COVID is that we need to go digital. So if digital was a nice to have in 2019, it's a must have. And companies that will be built now will only know this as a fact. Also, D2C that used to be a no-no in 2018-19 now became the king. So definitely it also opens up a lot of opportunities to Israeli companies. So I look forward for the next year to see how we evolve.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm super impressed. I love hearing from teams and just getting a feel for the work that they're doing, see the strengths of the Israeli ecosystem. Yaki, thank you again for joining us. Thank you for being such a wonderful partner and for doing so much for the Israeli ecosystem as well. For everyone who's here, you'll get a copy of this recording probably in 5 minutes straight after. Don't forget to keep an eye out on the EdTech Israel website for that next summit. I can't wait, Yaki. Can't wait to get back to Israel post-COVID. For those who want to check out the market map again, go to holoniq.com and you'll see a write-up on this year's Israel EdTech 50. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this morning. You've been wonderful. Look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Yaki.